Once all 4 layers have been iced, so you actually need icing between 3 of them, I'm now going to put this into the fridge for about 10-15 minutes. I just find it easier when I'm covering the icing on the outside if the actual cake itself is very firm. If I was to add any more layers to this, I might put a doweling, so a spike in the middle, just to kind of keep it stronger. Or if I was to be layering this cake up, so say if this was middle tier cake, I would then make sure that there was doweling in it. So just so the support of the cake above doesn't collapse it. You'd also notice that I've used what I describe as the smoothest cake on the top, and I also do the same on the bottom. So this is one cake from a 4-inch deep tin and a 6-inch deep, 6-inch wide. But what you have is, this was one cake cut in half, this is another cake cut in half. This is the bottom bit, and this is the bottom bit, and then it's almost sandwiched between the two. So it then means it's easier when I come to ice the top, there'll be less crumbs to get on it. So once this is cooled, I'm going to do something called, once it's cooled down and the icing has just set a little bit, it stays a bit firmer, I'm then going to do the crumb coat. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the end off. I don't want it too thick, don't want it too thin. I want it a squeezable thing. So what I'm going to do first, and I find this quite useful, is I will do just a slight ring around where my slice is. And the reason for that is often the crummiest bit, which we want to try and get in our remove from our final finish. So go round. You'll see just how easy it is to use the turntable. I've also not left my icing to set for long enough, so it is a bit wet. Okay, so now the cake has gone slightly firmer, so if I press this now, it's almost a bit like marshmallow, which makes it a really lovely icing to work with, but as I said, it's a bit of a faff to make. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my icing layer. So a number of different ways you can do this. I personally like to just pipe it on and almost go in a circular fashion. So a bit like a tornado around the cake. This just means that when you come through the scraping, you get a nice even spread. I might finish some bits. I always like to leave a little bit in my icing bag just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. So at this stage, I can now start using my scraper. So this is a metal-sided scraper. I love it. I think they're fantastic. They make icing cake so easy. I've had acrylic ones in the past. I've had ones that have like a joining top. This one, I can't even begin to tell you how simple it is. So, okay, so we had a few technical issues there. So the bit you missed was me moving the icing around. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my scraper to push the icing around the cake. It looks really simple, and that is because it actually is. With a scraper like this, it makes it nice and easy, and also the fact the icing's quite smooth. You'll notice as well there's no crumbs popping through the cake. That's because we did our crumb layer before. So wherever I put pressure on my scraper is where it will scrape icing from. So if I've noticed that there's a lot of icing at the top, for example, so this is really with taller cakes, I would then make sure I put my pressure towards the top, or I bend my
or lean my scraper in different directions. So I've now spotted that there are a few bits that are lacking a bit of icing, so I'll just get my smaller spatula and I'll just dot that on where it's needed. So a bit around the top here. And again, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit messy. Got a few bubbles on the side. Dad, stop! I'm trying to get something. Oh, I don't know. I'm now have to cut my edit this out. Oh, stop. So once that's all smoothed out, I'll then continue with my scraping. So we'll go back around and until I have a completely smooth edge. So the reason I like to use the turntable is it means you don't get big lines. So you'll notice that whenever I stop, there is some form of line. So here, that's where I stopped last time. So what I can do is I can just put the icing back on. I'll keep going around. So I used to be a massive perfectionist. If there's any form of blemish or bump, I would not fix it. I've reached a stage where actually that looks just as good as a completely finished cake. Mainly because whenever I seem to make cakes, I seem to give myself not a lot of time to it, like today. So I like to try and make it as simple for myself. I also don't perfectionist with cakes, and I want them to look absolutely perfect. And the reality is, no one actually knows. Usually what happens if you give it to someone, they'll take it out of the box. They'll, oh, sorry, I put my finger on it. It's alright, I pushed it out with a bit of spoon. Right, it's fine, don't worry. So yeah, I'm now at the stage where I'm finishing off my scraping. So what I'll do is I just use my metal spatula on my metal, scrape it off. So once my spatula is clean, my scraper is clean, I do it once more over to get any final excess off. You'll notice that the other side of my scraper has stripes on. This makes amazing effect cakes, but it's really important if you do use a stripe of any kind, big, thick, thin, small, whatever, that you would then need to freeze the cake again at this stage. So I would then go round with my stripes, I would then put the cake in the fridge or freezer to let it harden, I would then come back and I would ice in between lines, but that's not to say that's very different, don't think I was interested. So with the top, you'll notice that it's actually a bit scratchy at the moment. So I'm just going to get my small spatula, I'm going to move the icing in. What the top looks like doesn't really matter because I'm going to decorate this with what I describe as a chocolate drip. Just have it on there. So at this stage, if I wanted to, I could actually even out where I think it's a bit wonky. Just put a bit more icing on this side. I think for me the thing with icing is there's nothing worse than eating a cake which is all icing. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a bit of icing, particularly this icing, with the quality of butter it has in it. But actually, when you get a cake, you want a cake rather than icing. So I just noticed there's a bit of a, say I'm not perfecting down a bit, a bit of issue here, so just going round, make sure I keep my spatula flat, my scraper flat. By reaching round as well, you get a really smooth motion. So there's one line there, a bit of a line there, but that's not too bad. Oh, actually. This is the bit where I say I'm not a perfectionist. Actually, I'm a little bit. But you'll see how easy it is to fix any slight issues. Like, you just fill in a little bit more icing, and then scrape around again. And again, the amount of icing that comes off will all depend on the amount of pressure I put on. So if I put really firm pressure on, lots of icing will come off. If I use very little pressure like now, which is just more of a smoothing pressure, and the angle of my scraper change slightly, it's just a bit of a smooth. So that, not perfect, but it's done. So I'm going to leave the top as it is, and just kind of flatten down any edges, put it back in the fridge in preparation for it to be decorated later.
Oh, no.
Okay, so at this stage, as I've got this out of the fridge, I've realised this cake's had a bit of an accident. So really simply, to fix it up, all you need to do, fill it in, and then come back with our metal scraper and scrape it down. Because the rest of the cake is now a different texture, because it's hardened up in the fridge, it means it just slides down round really easily, and you wouldn't even know someone had put their pudgy fingers right into it. So once we're at this stage, we can start to flatten. So what I've done is I've put my palette knife, so the smaller one, into some boiling water, then wipe the water off. And then what I need to do is I can just smooth the top down. So because this is a high butter based cake, because it has lots of butter in it and it's now been sat in the fridge for a while, it means that it is quite cool. So the icing is also more malleable. So again, the cake's still a bit wonky, but it doesn't matter too much. So what I have here is I have a mixture of chocolate and butter. It's like a really thin ganache. At the moment it's a bit warm, which is great for letting it run down the side of the cake. But also because the cake is quite cool, it means it cools quite quickly. So some people do this freehand just with a spoon, but I like to do it in a squeezy bottle. So I'll put a little bit down, let it run, and just spin my table round. So if I want a longer strand, I would hold that bottle there and squeeze for longer. If I want a shorter strand, I'd put it there for less. So I just edge this all the way around the cake. If I wanted a wider section like that, I'd put the bottle further down. If I wanted a narrower section, I'd put the bottle further up. So just do this all the way around the cake. If I go, well, actually, I'd like this one a bit longer, I put my bottle back on and I can just pop down some more icing, which makes it quite handy. Keep going round. What this is doing is it's creating a barrier. So in a moment, I'm going to flood the middle of the cake with some more ganache, but this prevents it running down willy-nilly and going a bit wild. So by gradually squeezing it out, I'm creating a really, really nice pattern around the edge. So what we have now is a drip cake. So you'll often see these out and about. Also just splattered some icing. So at this stage, what I like to do is I take the lid off, and then because this acts like a barrier, I just pour this into the middle. So roughly about that. I then use my spatula, make sure it's dry, otherwise it will react, and I just spread it out. When I get to the edge, I make sure I don't push it over because otherwise I'll have extra lines, and I've already decided where I want those lines and what I want them to look like. So quite often I will then just put extra accessories on top.